this.
All right, welcome to the Broke Man's Podcast.
Starting strong.
I'm your host, the Broke Man.
I mean, he's breaking shit.
I have some real great men in my life here today, and we are going to speak on vulnerability. Vulnerability is a touchy subject, especially when it comes to men and the societal norms around it. I do find that vulnerability is a superpower, but with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to know how to handle it.
Okay, Uncle Ben.
Peter. Oh man. All right, let's kick it off. Dear God.
Oh God. I'm sorry. I had to throw it in there. Ben Garius.
Being vulnerable. Being able to reach out when you're feeling weak.
Man.
As a person, but right now we sit before you three men. So we are going to talk about being vulnerable and being able to reach out as a man.
Yeah. I think it's hard. It's hard in our current society and our current environment that we're in too. Not just with the people that you have relationships with, but just people in general. I think there's a level of trust that needs to be earned. On top of that too, especially if you have a history of getting burned when it comes to being vulnerable. I mean, that plays a huge factor in what we got going on too. So like if I'm reaching out to somebody and I'm like, hey, I'm going through some shit right now, and all of a sudden, I turn around 2 days later and they're spouting my business all over, God's green earth, like that's gonna make me shut down. It's gonna make me bored up. It's gonna
Build up walls. Yeah.
So I think it's I definitely think it's healthy too, but I think there needs to be a level of trust. And I have definitely reached out to Uncle Ben Garius before.
Gentlemen.
No, I've reached out to Gary numerous times where I've just been like, man, like I'm going through it right now. I'm going through it to the point where I don't know where to turn. I mean, I reached out to you this week too, where I was just like, man, I just got home and started crying. Like,
yeah.
no reason whatsoever. And I just sat there, and you were like, how much have you worked this week? And I'm like, 84 hours. You're like, you got burnout, my dude. And I'm like, I've never had it like this. Everything's going good. I don't know what to do about this. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I'd not experienced so much good happen in my life all at once that I was just like, shit, like I don't know what to do with this. Like I was in awe. You can be happy, everything can be going good, and you can still have burnout. So I think the vulnerability aspect, and I appreciate you for that too. I mean, just being able to be vulnerable and being able to
be vulnerable enough to sorry to interrupt.
No,
being
you're
vulnerable
good.
enough to vent.
Yeah. Yeah, and we get back to our, last week too, where we were talking about venting and everything too, and it was just like, it was one of those things where I just sat there and I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on with me right now, but I'm sitting here and I could fucking like fill an entire pitcher with tears right now. Like it was just one of those things where I was like, I don't know what to do, and you were like, it's all right, everything's gonna be good, and I'm like, all right, okay, sounds good.
There's a fear built around vulnerability.
Yeah,
only because it's a fear, and we build up walls. We build up walls from trauma, and we build up walls from relationships, and like you said, getting burnt, getting hurt again.
Yeah.
So that fear of having to tear down those walls again to come out and say something, to speak.
Yeah.
Man.
I can definitely say in my current relationship too, like, shout out to you. I feel so incredibly comfortable talking to her. Like it's one of those things where I'm just like, I feel comfortable. Like I can just be like, hey, I'm having a real shitty day right now. Like, and she's like, it's okay. we got this. Like, I know you're going through some shit right now, but we'll get through it. Like, that's what it is. And she doesn't expect me to like bare my soul to her or anything like that. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, I'm going through it. She's like, all right, if you want to talk, I'm here. If not, like, we'll just get through it. Like, it's, do you want comfort or solutions kind of thing? So, and I appreciate her for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially on the putting up your walls, getting burned a lot. I especially saw that in my most recent relationship, but I see it all the time with guys too, not just in the relationship space, but friendship and just life in general. And it could be the habits that mentioned to you, Gary, the unhealthy habits that you can have when you're trying to protect yourself with that because you haven't healed from your trauma, the amount of times you got burned or the times where you couldn't share how you felt, no one gave a shit, quite frankly, or punished you for being open. And so then you develop these unhealthy habits of you get scared or you scoff at vulnerability from others. You keep everyone at an arm's distance. You never really can connect with anyone. Like, it's a convenience almost. Like, hey, we're acquaintances. We have good times when we're out, having fun. But when it's an intimate moment where we're just sitting down having a drink or sitting down just talking, you can't bond because this person's afraid of just saying, here's who I am. Here are the parts of myself that I don't want you to see. I can't show you that because I'm too scared. And then it's going to be like, hey, I you want someone to open up to you if there's a genuine relationship there. Yeah. And if they don't, then it creates an unsafe environment for you too that is trying to share. It's like, I'm not being reciprocated here.
Well, and it's it's funny you talk about that too, because I remember last podcast when you and I left and everything, and you and I kind of started talking about our military service and everything like that, and we're kind of venting and whatnot too, and that's a perfect example of being vulnerable and everything too. I mean, both of us went through some shit. You were talking about your service and stuff like that, and I'm like, you still served, like. You 100% still served. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, you still did your time and stuff like that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, the military is like a horrible relationship, man. Oh my, I shit you not, man. They will gaslight you and fuck you 7 ways to Sunday, man.
That's true.
Like, you say, hey, I got this going on. No, you don't. You're fine. Grow the fuck up, like grow up here. And it's like, people actually go through shit, and it's hard because when you're in a situation like that too, there's not a whole lot you can do. And I think, especially for me, like getting out and everything, seeing that there are people that actually give a shit too is huge. And actually to see that, and I think that's where a lot of my trauma comes from too, is like being gaslit for so long by the military saying like, you're fine. And I'm like, am I though? Am I really? And like, now 4 years later getting out, it's a whole different perspective and everything now too. Like, there's people like you, the group that we're a part of and everything too. There's people out here that care. There's people out here that care, that want to listen, that give a shit about how you're feeling and give a shit about your mental health, your mental well-being, and want to see you get the help that you need, whether it be professional or whether it be personal. Like, sometimes all you need is just to sit down for a cup of coffee and have a conversation with somebody. And I think that's what we do here. I mean, we have a great relationship with the group of guys that we hang out with. And you can sit down and have a conversation with any one of them.
And be very open in a safe space. Being vulnerable also comes with having a safe space.
Yeah.
Having that safe space and knowing you can trust those around you and trust whoever you're being vulnerable around so that they don't use it as ammo.
Yeah.
They don't tear it down. And I know I'll skip over it a little bit, but I know with societal norms and whatnot, it's not known for man to be vulnerable because it's seen as weak.
Yeah.
and it can deter us from relationships because we don't want that significant other to see us as weak. So it's if we create a fear of losing them. So then we go to the places where we're not venting, we're not talking, we're not properly communicating, and we're not being vulnerable. We're not showing them we really are, and that leads to a lot of man's mental health. Wait a minute.
You interrupted me.
I did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to take that a step further.
All right, go ahead, man.
You're not venting in the proper way. You're not venting with the proper people. You're taking it to places that you shouldn't be. You know, it's like
Yes.
I'm going to be bold with this one. You know, there are times where my dick has taken me places that I'd tell you what, I wouldn't go with a gun. That's for damn certain.
It's true.
But it's true. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
you take the wrong way out.
Yeah.
You make poor decisions because you're not venting. You're not taking care of yourself. So in my mind, it's just like with a degree and everything too. It's like when you're going to do a job, I'm going to take somebody with experience over a degree any day of the week. That's just me. I'm going to take a man who's vulnerable, who's able to sit down and talk about his feelings, talk about what he's going through and everything, over somebody who's not any day of the week.
I'll take that with, I agree 100%. I'll take somebody who's willing to admit, like, hey, I'm here to learn. I don't know much. I'm here to build myself up.
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And that takes true vulnerability, especially nowadays with people. And, yeah, you don't know everything. I don't know how to do this. It takes vulnerability to ask for help, especially as a guy. Oh, man. To admit we don't know something, man, and we feel inadequate about something.
I would rather, you know, we talk about that quite a bit at work and everything too. The I know guy. Oh my God. Everybody knows the I know guy. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows the guys. Yep, exactly. He's like, hey, so we do this. And he's like, I know. And I was like, do you? Because you just showed up yesterday. So please explain to me how you know this.
Real quick. You know how long it took me to stop? It became just a regurgitating habit. Oh, yeah, I know. Or not, you're feeling stupid. Somebody brings up something. Oh, have you heard of this? Yeah, I have. I've heard it. Yeah, you heard of that? Sure. I remember I caught myself through catching a friend.
Gary, it's okay to not know it.
I know. I know. But no, it's real,
It's
man.
hard.
We catch ourselves doing that, and now I still have to catch myself because I got used to saying it, so I watch how I speak every time.
Because it's a stigma. It's
Yes.
such a stigma around men and their health and everything too, because we're expected to jump into the unknown and be like, yep, we know.
I know.
We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
and we're sitting there.
absolutely.
We're sitting there like, I have not a clue what I'm doing. You get home at the end of the day and you're like, I might be autistic. I'm just saying.
But there comes a time, I know when I said I know plenty of times, where I had to get home. I'm like, why did I say that? Mm-hmm. Why did I say that? And learning true vulnerability and the strength and the power in it is saying, hey, can you teach me?
Because
I
now,
don't know.
now you go one of two ways. Now you either dive deeper into the lie of I know, and you got to back that shit up, or you have to backpedal and be like, hey, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. Can we maybe go over that again?
I was just playing with the team.
I see that. That's very good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going to touch it because I'll knock that shit all over.
See, you're being vulnerable. You're being honest with.
I'm 100% honest with that.
But when it comes to relationships, how important is vulnerability for you? If I can ask that question, and if you can be
For me,
Yeah,
if
for
I
you.
can be vulnerable, I think it's incredibly important because I think obviously like the first, few months of the relationship
Yeah.
is, really about getting to learn each other. You're really in that honeymoon phase. And to me, I never like to leave the honeymoon phase. Like, especially when I get into a relationship, I am going to do everything I possibly can to stay in that phase for as long as humanly possible.
Bo&Sonny.
If it's 2 years, 5 years, whatever. Like, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm the type of guy that's going to, hey, you need something? Okay, I'm going to send it to your work so that way you have something to fucking eat. Because I can tell you right now that that's just who I am. Or,
Okay.
hey, random day, flowers, cool. Random day, go out to dinner or something like that, awesome. Love that kind of shit. I think that's important. But also on the flip side of that, there's the quality time, the words of affirmation and stuff like that. There is there's the quality time and acts of service.
Yeah.
The words of affirmation, being vulnerable, saying like, hey, I'm not feeling myself today. I'm not feeling like I'm worthy. I'm not feeling like I'm adequate enough to be in this relationship kind of thing. I think it's important to say, like, to get those a little bit too, not just give them. And I can tell you right now, the relationship I'm in is fantastic when it comes to that. Like, it's very important to me to be like, hey, like, I'm not feeling myself. And she will literally sit there and be like, what can I do for you? Is there anything physically, tangibly that I can do for you, or do you just need a vent?
Mm.
And being able to be that vulnerable and be like, hey, I'm going through some shit today. I had a rough day at work, or hey, I'm going through some shit today. I just am not feeling it. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling low. And being able to verbalize that instead of, just keeping it like right here in like your throat. Oh, God, that's the worst. That is the absolute worst. That's important. That's very important to me.
It is important being vulnerable and having that safe space. But I say being vulnerable almost it can become a skill in a way. You have to learn. You have to open those doors up. And also, it takes a skill to learn how to allow somebody else to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It takes a skill, and whether it's a friendship, intimate relationship, it's a skill. So how far would you give a person that you're trying to be vulnerable with, say in a relationship, if you're not seeing things go the way you need them to go while you're being vulnerable?
Like time wise? Oof.
Yeah, I'll ask that question.
I'm going to turn that one over to Bo. Because I like it rough, and I will typically give somebody more chances than I probably should, because that's just who I am as a person. Like I am the type of man that will give you every opportunity to be like, hey, like, this ain't working right now. Can we work on something? And I'll bring up my vulnerabilities and how I'm feeling, and sometimes it'll get better, sometimes it won't, and I will stay much longer than I probably should.
Yeah, and this is something that I've really worked on since my last relationship and seeing what I needed to work on. And this is being vulnerable in the sense that I could have done better at communicating or bringing up those topics of, hey, I feel like disconnected. I feel these things, and practicing stating how you're feeling. So with that vulnerability of how long does it take, I think it depends on the situation. Well, especially in mine, she had gone through deployment, got back, so every situation is different. So you got to give time and understanding and patience and love that way. Absolutely. But I think it should be an ongoing conversation. And, I realize for myself that I could have initiated those conversations or talked about it a little bit more, not just on vulnerability, but on other things. And, being vulnerable, saying, hey, I really want to talk about this, and being open to getting rejected. I think that's the big thing, is that when you're trying to be vulnerable, having those discussions and saying, I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to tell me what you need and want. I want you to show me every nook and cranny of your essence, scary, disgusting, whatever you think it is, so we can see each other in its entirety, and then, but be open to being rejected. But to answer your question directly, it really depends. But having those conversations, if you keep having those conversations, and it doesn't seem like there's something that's not working, then maybe go to therapy. And if that doesn't work, then the relationship isn't for you guys. Because it seems like there would be a lot of work to be done individually. Everyone says they need to work on a relationship or friendship. This can be friendships too. where instead of working on the relationship or the friendship, you got to work on yourselves. Because once you work on yourself and start being vulnerable and start doing all the things that needs to be done to self-actualize and get better as a human being, that's when you can bring a more beautiful relationship. I went off on a little tangent there, but
That's a good tangent.
But
Great
but,
tangent.
Okay, here's a question
Yeah.
for you. But what if only one person is putting in that effort? What do you do then? Do you give them the chance, or do you verbalize that, like, hey, I'm the only one putting in the effort right now, and give them a chance to actually reciprocate, or how do
Communication,
yeah.
yeah, communication. It goes all the way down there. You got something?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm gonna be bold here, but as I've talked to you about this and some other friends about my most recent relationship, in that sense, she felt that if she was vulnerable, and this can be friends too, I want to make sure it's abroad for everyone here and listening, but she said to me, if I told you what I needed and wanted, I gave you my playbook, and now I don't feel as genuine afterwards. It's like, that's a tough thing to hear, because and now you're like, well, that's how we know how to be there for each other, and you have to articulate, like, that's not healthy, that's something you need to communicate, and so that's calling it out and stating, and I didn't do it in the moment. Full transparency, I didn't do it in the moment, but you have to, from my learnings of what I didn't do, saying, hey, this is unhealthy, and stating it like it is, and saying, hey, if we need to continue this healthy relationship or friendship, this can't happen anymore, because this is not fair. We can't read each other's minds as people. We have to have those conversations and be scared to be open to be rejected and not loved, and facilitate that safe space.
Listen, I'm going to spell that out even better for you. I'm autistic as fuck, so you better spell that shit out for me, or else I'm not going to see it.
Yeah.
Especially guys.
Like,
pick up
we
hints.
don't. We're not mind readers. Just tell us what, in the words of the Notebook, what do you want? Like, just tell me. And I'm just like, and that's the thing too, and that's the thing that I had to tell my relationship too. Is like, I was like, I need you to, like, paste that shit on a billboard so I see it. Like, I can't read your mind. Like, I need you to just be open and honest about it.
I think communication, when they say communication is the key, it goes so far. Needs and wants have to be communicated.
Yeah, for sure.
Needs and wants have to be communicated. I don't know what you like. Some things on a very, very small scale I can figure out. You like me coming home and doing a certain thing. Certain things can be figured out. But
Yeah,
for the most part, it has to be communicated. Teach me how to love you.
There's social cues and everything. I can tell. Oh my god.
Social cues we can pick up on, but for the most part, when it comes to the deeper feeling, the deeper love in that part, it needs to be communicated. Let's talk about it. I don't like when you do this. I prefer when you do that. Let's communicate.
Yeah.
Last week when you did this, I'm really not feeling it.
Yeah. Prime
And being okay with that. Go ahead.
prime example of this.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So, and I'm not trying to. I want to preface this whole thing with saying I am not trying to talk shit about my last relationship at all.
No names.
No names.
All right, cool.
No names.
We have no idea. Never met her.
Exactly.
All right.
But my last relationship, holy sweet baby fucking Jesus. I could come home, I could clean the entire house, I could make it spick and span, and she would come through and clean it after me because it wasn't up to her standards. It wasn't up to what she wanted. So when I approached her and said, hey, I see you doing this. What can I do to make it so you don't have to continue to do this? She was like, I don't know. I just have to do it. And I'm like, can we
Pros
talk
and
about this for a
cons
second?
of being vulnerable in a relationship. You have the pro where they see you, they understand you.
Yeah.
And you could be vulnerable. Now they know how to actually not even help be there for you. The cons, they have ammo. I've been through that.
Oh my
When
God, yes.
What I gave out got shot back at me. And whew, when I tell you that can break any man down.
Yeah.
Him actually breaking down his walls to be vulnerable with you and give you that side of him that's in society is supposed to be strong. And he gives that to you, and you turn around and you put those bullets in that gun and you turn it right back at his weakest moment, and you tear us down.
So
But
that
it has
yeah.
I'm sorry, but it has its pros. You're in the right relationship and being vulnerable, and they learn how to let you be vulnerable. You have to learn how to let each other be vulnerable, and that takes a skill set. Working on yourself, like you spoke about earlier, you're working on yourself to learn those skill sets, to have those tools to work in that relationship, to learn how to let somebody be vulnerable, let somebody speak, and not try to fix everything. Let someone speak.
Yes.
Be there.
So that happened in a previous relationship of mine too. Like you guys know, like I'm very big into my faith now and stuff like that. It's very important to me. Prior to this, I wasn't. Wouldn't say I was like a non-believer kind of thing, but I was questioning quite a bit of shit, and I was like, really? You sure about that? Guy just came up 3 days and he was good to go. Okay. Um, Previous relationship that I was in was with a woman who was Catholic, and she and her family were so devout in their beliefs. They didn't believe in counseling, didn't believe any sort of like therapy or anything like that. And at the time, I was going through probably the worst time in my life when it came to dealing with stuff from the military, from my childhood, and everything like that. And it got to the point where like I needed to be medicated, all that kind of stuff. I can finally say that I've been off all sorts of medication since like 2022. So I mean, very proud of that. But it got to the point where she was like, "Why are you going to therapy?" And I was like, "I'm going through some stuff right now. Like, I don't think you understand like how much stuff that we go through. You know, seeing some of the stuff we do." And she straight up said to me, "Why don't you just pray about it?" And I'm like, I'll try it, but I'm still going to go to therapy. And she's like, "Yeah, it's just really weird that you would go to therapy for something like that when God can fix everything." And I'm like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that one. But it was hard for me. It's somebody, as somebody who was gaslit into feeling almost inferior because of my beliefs and everything at the time, it was hard. It was very hard. So for the longest time, I struggled with opening up how I felt, with opening up, what I was going through and everything too. Like, there's a lot of stuff that went down in the military that I struggled to talk about for a long time. And I don't say it was because of that, but I think it was a large part of that too.
We're going to take a little small break and get right back to it.
Yeah.
All right, we are back.
Oh no.
All right, so we're heading back to relationships and being vulnerable in a relationship and this, I would say this has nothing to do with your partner, but this has everything to do with you as a man. When you admit, like, hey, I don't know everything. I can't fix that. I have to call somebody else to fix it. And we feel inadequate and we feel small when things like that happen.
But I also think you need to be given the opportunity to try.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
if that choice is taken away from you as a man, you feel so incredibly emasculated. It's not
Absolutely.
Even funny.
Yeah.
So I think that's super, super important that you're given the opportunity to
Absolutely.
try instead of that choice being
No, but
taken away from you.
even there's even a point where I've seen in other relationships and even my past ones where you're afraid to bring that up,
Yeah.
that you don't know how to fix something.
Yeah.
And it's tough not learning the tool and not having the skill of true vulnerability and recognizing that it's true strength.
Yeah.
And communicating that as a man. Definitely. Around what time did you guys realize your vulnerabilities are your powers? As a superpower, especially as a man nowadays. When did it hit for you?
30.
Sounds about right. Yeah. Sounds about
And
right.
I am 30. So, I mean, realistically though, man, like it was one of those things where I just kind of sat there and I was like, shit, like I guess it's okay. Because you and I talked about this, Gary. Like my previous relationship, I bounced back so incredibly fast
Yeah.
because of how I was equipped. I think not from. I just think from the environment that I was in and everything too. Like I've told you guys this too. Like I moved out here, I knew zero people. I knew zero people. So yeah, I bounced back so fast because I was able to be vulnerable with myself and say, "Hey, I have no idea what I'm doing right now." So sink or swim, motherfucker.
Yeah. I'm big on that. What I'm interested, but what are your pros and cons when it comes to being vulnerable? What do you see?
Say anything? Like kind of how you talk, what you talk about?
Pros and cons, the goods, the bads about being vulnerable as a person, as a man.
Well, I think we'll start off with the cons. Cons, society tells you that man can't be vulnerable, and that, say, in a relationship, the woman will look at you as weak and will leave or use it against you, be toxic and unhealthy that way. Or your friends are like, bro, what are you talking about? What are you saying? And like the cons are you open yourself up to being hurt and being used and being manipulated and being controlled possibly. And also too, now they know your true intentions, your true feelings, so now they're like, okay, I know what button to push. Those are the cons, especially being around the wrong people.
Know what buttons to push.
And so the pros though, the other con is, the biggest con I think of them all is you cut yourself off from true bonding and true beautiful long-lasting relationships. And I find that's the biggest freaking con outweighing everything else, is that okay, you can protect yourself if you're not vulnerable with being vulnerable. You have those cons of people using against you, all that stuff. You feel scared, you feel all open and exposed mentally, emotionally. But the biggest con is then you don't have true, beautiful, loving, amazing relationships with your friends, your family, your partner, and you cut yourself off from the feelings of just fulfillment and love from yourself and for yourself. You cut yourself off from not being mature and healing and growing and not embracing those sides of you. You're stunted for the rest of your life if you do not address it.
Great. Real quick. I just thought about something very important. Physical vulnerability. Realizing that we all have insecurities and our bodies are not perfect. That's for people in general. And it is very tough. It is very tough to be like, okay, this is my body. This is who I am. These are my insecurities. Like, none of us think we're perfect, but a lot of times we try to aim for perfect. And especially in the gym, especially guys that go to the gym, women that go to the gym. We aim for perfection. And any little thing that's off, we are off. Nowadays, I'm very happy and I'm very grateful that I'm over that. I'm over that. Now I still work out to look good, butt naked. But for the most part, I work out because it feels good and it's therapeutic. It is. I can't see you, man. For some reason, something's wrong with I don't know, my lens in my eyes. But also, so a pro to vulnerability. We'll get back to the physical part of being vulnerable. But another pro to vulnerability is not being alone when you realize you're not the only one going through this. When you open up vulnerability and you're able to vent, and you're able to talk, you realize like, oh my gosh, so many people feel this way. It's not just me. So many men feel this way, and it's not just me. Yeah. And now I can speak. Now I can share. Now I can be open and honest, and I can take a sigh of relief. And there's a huge weight lifted off my back.
Yeah.
And then when you have that, you learn how to treat your relationships better when you have that.
Yeah.
It all ties in together. But back to physical vulnerability, realizing that you don't have everything that you want in life when it comes to the physicality parts.
You know, I struggled with that for a long time. You know, I am 6'5". Like that is a lot of shit to move around. Like that is a big motherfucker right there.
He's a bear.
I mean, it's I know I'm never gonna be like 210 pounds. That would look disgusting on me. That would look absolutely sickening. Right now I'm sitting at about 292, 300. Like a, I'm a large individual, but also at the same time I see these guys like when I go to the gym and everything. So I am a power lifter by trade. Like I tell you what, you give me something heavy to lift, it's moving. Like promise you that. But like I see like guys like you guys, for example, like you guys are cut, you guys are fit and everything too. We also have two different body structures and everything too. Like, I can move mountains and shit like that, but you guys are more on the physique side, which there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm just more on the, hey, there's a car over there that needs to be flipped. Let's do it. Let's go for it, kind of thing.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
I mean, but realistically, and as men, we need to stop comparing ourselves to each other. We need to stop doing that because that's where jealousy sets in. Those are the roots of just some pretty bad things where you start like getting in your mind like, well, nobody's gonna like me, kind of thing. I promise you, you can still, pull chicks and stuff like that, being my size and everything too. It's all about how you carry yourself, your confidence level and everything like that, and your ability to be vulnerable, your ability to realize that, hey, this is who I am. You know, I've lost 60 pounds since I moved here and everything. I was a big boy when I first moved here. Gary can tell you I was Mr. McThickums before.
Mr. McThickums.
But, I've also been running around after kids for the past 7 months and everything too. But I've also changed my eating habits. I've changed my workout schedule
That's
and stuff
awesome.
like that too. But it's also to the point of that's what I wanted to do. I have a competition coming up in 2 months. Like, I need to be able to perform and everything too. So, yeah, I think physical vulnerability is important because tell you what, you're going to have to get used to me and my 2 centimeter defeater.
You got
Real quick. No, how important is that? So let's break this all the way down to being in the bedroom. I'm being honest right now. Being in the bedroom and being able to take your clothes off and saying, "Here I am. Here I am. This is my body. This is me. Take it or leave it. Love me as I am. This is me."
I'm completely comfortable with myself. Like realistically, like I am. I'm a bigger guy. I respect that. I know that and everything. But I tell you what, like I look good naked. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I do. I look good naked.
No. I'm not laughing at you. That's just funny. That's when I tell people I work out to look good butt naked.
Yeah, I do. Like I'm very happy with my legs. Like I got calves the size of fucking trash cans for
He's
a
not lying.
reason. I mean,
I don't. I'd rather not.
I'll go
I'll
off camera
pass.
for that. I don't
I'll
think we want to
pass.
make this
All
an
right, keep
OnlyFans
going. No,
kind
get right back to it.
But no, like I am comfortable with myself naked. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with me or anything like that. I'm proportionate. I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
I remember having short story. I remember being with a woman, and this is important to allowing others to be vulnerable and willing to have that. And I remember her feeling so insecure and being vulnerable about her body and being able to be there for that person and show them like it's okay. I accept you for who you are. This is beauty. We are good to go. But Bo, I apologize for interrupting you twice, man. Go ahead.
it's all good. I love you. It's all good, bro. But I think you touched on a point that's a pro is when back to the pros of vulnerability is that if you can be vulnerable with yourself and start practicing vulnerability with others, you can hold space. You know how to hold space for everyone else that wants to be vulnerable or needs to be vulnerable. Because then if you don't have that skill of being vulnerable with yourself or with others, saying, I'm feeling this way, it's okay to feel this way. You start validating your own feelings. You have some compassion like, hey, self, I understand how you're feeling. You're feeling anxious. You're feeling disconnected from this person. You're feeling scared. You're feeling all these emotions. I'm feeling inadequate, all these things. And you're validating like, hey, it's okay to feel this way. You don't judge it. You're your own best friend. And then when you practice those skills as a pro of being vulnerable, then being vulnerable with others is you almost give off an energy too, how you carry yourself and how you're with other people. People can pick up on that, and you can hold space like that one lady that was insecure, and you could be a human to human being saying, "Hey, I get it. I'm insecure too about some things, or I feel vulnerable about some things too, and that's okay to feel that way. Like it sucks. I'm here with you. We'll work through it. You're beautiful, or whatever the case may be." Like I talked to the guy yesterday, and we just sat by the skate park at Tallulah after playing pickleball, and we just started talking about my past relationship, the issues that I wanted to work on, what happened there, and so he talked about it, and you learn that skill of holding space for everyone and being safe, and that's another pro of like,
I like that.
and also too, you have the chance of having a deeper relationship so quickly in the right way. It's not like in a relationship you speed things through so fast, like you move too fast where like you're dating, you're moving in, all that stuff. But being vulnerable, you can go deeper in a healthy way because you're like, I see your humanity. I see you. And you know what? I accept you for you. You're not perfect, but I accept you for you and hold love for you as you are. And so those are the big pros of being vulnerable.
So we've been talking about being vulnerable with yourself, okay?
Yes.
How do you guys practice physical vulnerability with yourself?
I tell myself I love myself. I love you. I look myself in the mirror and say I love you.
Okay.
We made it. I look my inner child back and say, hey, look at us. We made it, and I love you. Look how we built ourselves up mentally and physically. I love you. Look where we are. Look where we are now. Mm-hmm. Back to that lady in the last podcast that told me what I was going to be like when I was older. I'm like, look, we're here. Mm-hmm. I said, what about you?
Those self-affirmations, like, actually looking at yourself saying, like, hey, look good. Like, you look good.
It's okay to do that, too.
It is.
It's very okay.
I think for me, it's mostly, like, go and be honest, I sleep butt-ass naked, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't you? I see that smoke,
No,
Gary.
I do that, too, sometimes, man. It's all right.
No,
Real
it's
vulnerability.
free.
Yeah, it's free. I didn't discover that till recently. I was like,
this is amazing.
This is what it's like. All right, we're on a podcast talking about sleeping butt naked. All right, but it's true.
But to me, that's a immense vulnerability. Like, that is incredibly vulnerable, because you have to understand, like, somebody breaks into your place and you butt ass naked, like, man. Let me tell you, they're gonna get a greased up old deaf guy. Like, when I come running through the house,
I thought about that. The vulnerability of being, I thought about that for real. That was the thing. I was like, what if somebody breaks in and I'm just walking around here butt booty naked, and somebody decides to break in my house? Like, what am I gonna do? We're gonna fight, and they're just
100%.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a raging heart on, a gun in my hand, and it's gonna be a bad day for them.
All right. Back to, what about you, Bo?
No, it's funny. It's funny you guys say that. I don't know if I should be saying it on a podcast, but like sometimes I'll walk around the apartment. Shout out Tyler. Not there. He's at work. But like sometimes I'll just walk around and be like, I'm hot as fuck right now. I don't want anything on, so I'll walk around.
Listen, there is something about having a fan like blow sweet fairy kisses on your cock and taters that just feels so good.
Oh, real quick, I got something. So, but to the point of physical vulnerability too, there's a guy I listen to. His name's Matthew Hussey, who's a dating coach, and the self-love and like I love myself, all that stuff. It's great, and I really attached, or it really calls to me how he explained it is, and I'm going to be off, but on kind of in that direction. But you're on this earth to take care of yourself, or to take care of this body that you're given, this soul that you're given. So whether you like yourself or not, you feel insecure or not, your goal, your only job, your unique job, is to protect this self, to love oneself, to nurture oneself, to make sure you're doing what's best for yourself in a loving way, not a selfish way of like screwing people over, but saying, hey, What do I need right now? Hey, do I need a moment? Or hey, this relationship isn't serving me. Okay. Or hey, I'm feeling insecure about my body. What can we do to take care of my body? From a loving space instead of like, that's your job. So you may not like yourself in that moment, but you're still loving yourself, because those are two different things. And I think having that space of, if I'm feeling insecure about anything, it's like, okay, what can we do to take care of this? What can we do to nurture this body, mentally, emotionally, physically?
So, to add on to that, what do you do then to nurture your physical self, your emotional self, your spiritual, your mental? Like, what do you guys do in those moments when you're feeling extra vulnerable? You're feeling like, man, I'm feeling low as all get up. How do you feed that?
I feed it, before we end this podcast, I feed mine with my reading, my affirmations, my writing of 3 things I'm grateful for every day. Just my normal basic things I have, and I make sure I stay true to it. Mm-hmm. And when it's off, I can tell it's off. When I haven't done it in a few days, I can tell it's off. And I make sure I get back to that. That's what balances me a lot, waking up in the morning and reminding myself, okay, I have a new day.
Yeah.
I am grateful for love. I'm grateful for everything that's here, which we're going to go through that before we end this podcast. Go ahead, Bo.
Real quick, one thing to answer your question of when the vulnerability superpower, I really want to answer that question. But to that, I think really accepting and surrendering to the emotions that you're feeling and just knowing their emotions, and then not judging them, just saying, I'm feeling this way. Let me surrender to it and accept that, because fighting it only makes it worse. And then after you can examine saying, what is this telling me? What can I do after you surrender, accept that? Because once you do, you can get clarity because it's past. And then it's not coming from an emotional, frantic terror or insecure point of view. It's, okay, I'm feeling all these ways. What can I do to like take that next step forward, that healthy step forward? So I think just accepting and surrendering to those feelings and emotions. Real quick on the time that I figured out vulnerability is superpower, I really think that stands out was with my relationship starting last year and being open and vulnerable with my friends and close chosen family about the issues that were going on in my relationship, and just crying and being vulnerable and them being there for me. But then especially after the relationship, I hosted a cookout, and so all the close friends that have been there for me since day one, I was like, well, I had everyone together, and I just wanted to express myself. I was like, hey, I really appreciate you, especially this past year and a half. And I started tearing up. I started getting emotional. I started choking on my own words, because I was like, holy fuck. Like, I went through so much, and I'm like, you were there for me. I really appreciate it. And so it showed all my friends. They were starting to tear up too, but I sat down with my friend after, and she was like, that's good that you did that, because now it gives permission for every other guy that was there, my boy, to be vulnerable with me and say, oh, this is okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. And so I think demonstrating or showing that, being that first, allows people to be opened up. And that's where my superpower is. And I've been connecting deeper and deeper with everyone in my life since then. And it's like, holy shit, this is amazing.
I think every one of us have come to a place when we do a great job with that. We do a wonderful job with that. Kudos to you guys, seriously. We do a wonderful job with that, and we stay healthy. This is the healthiest I've been mentally since I can remember.
And
seriously,
I like one thing. Yeah. Fuck you. I like one thing he said though.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Dang, man.
That hits home. Because that's hard to admit sometimes, that it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have feelings as a man. It's okay to express those feelings too. So, yeah.
I'll end this with, I'm grateful for vulnerability, the strength of it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for learning it. I'm grateful for the friends that I have, and I'm extremely grateful to be able to share that vulnerability with everybody that's in my life and that I've cultivated meaningful relationships with. And there was one more thing you brought up that it struck. Being able to sit in your feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay to sit in your feelings. It's okay to feel them. It's okay to sit down and feel those feelings. It's okay to be there. And I do that often to make sure I know what's really going on and I sit and get to the root of it. And I actually allow myself. I'll allow myself to cry.
Yep.
I'll allow myself to be in fear sometimes. I allow it. I'll allow it to be there. I'll allow it to run through. I'll allow it to sit there and let it be so it can run through and teach me what I need to learn. And so I can assess my better and handle the next. Emotions are great. Feelings are great. Vulnerability is great. Learn to sit in them.
Yeah.
Moment of gratitude before we end this.
Real quick. So, this vulnerability with the overall message, you said it we all said this a couple times. Vulnerability is one of the strongest fucking things you could ever do. And you experienced this yourself since being in the military. I'll use this as an easy example. What's stronger? A man that goes into battle and is not fearing anything, or the man that fears and is scared to shit but still goes in, still does the work, still does that. That shows a stronger character. That shows the strength of like, here's who I am. Here's all my shit. I own it. You can't use that against me because I know everyone else in this world has their own shit they're dealing with. And if you're going to use that against me, you're a fucking liar. You're an asshole.
Yeah.
But that's the true strength. Like, I'm strong to show you where I'm vulnerable and weak, or where I'm feeling. And guess what? I own that. And you know what? That's okay.
Yep.
That's the extremely strong and the best thing you can do for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
Gratitude, man.
You got one?
Oh, yeah, the moment of gratitude real quick for me.
I'm just so grateful that we can have this kind of brotherhood and the ability to talk about these so important things. I mean, it makes us better for humanity and for ourselves, our family and friends. So I'm definitely super, super grateful for all of it.
And I'm not afraid to say I love you guys. I'm serious. We've been through a lot and shared a lot. So I love you guys. You guys keep me healthy.
Yep.
You guys keep me healthy for everything that I'm in, whether it comes to work or home. So I really appreciate that, and I'm truly grateful for that. I'm grateful for vulnerability. It's made me stronger.
I'm also grateful for vulnerability, but I am, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I am so incredibly grateful for my chosen family. I am so incredibly grateful for brotherhood, for what this place has done for me, for what these conversations have done for me, and I am just incredibly grateful for being given the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than myself.
All right. Thank you, guys. Broke Men's Podcast.
Peace.